Robbie Bacon, Associate Editor of RideApart, here at the CFMoto stand at EICMA 2025, a stand that has essentially blitzed every other manufacturer in terms of what the brand has added to its lineup this year. Now that comes with a slight caveat because CFMoto hasn't blitzed every brand in terms of what it's adding, but it's blitzed the known quantities, blitzing Yamaha, Honda, etc. It's now competing with those known quantities. It's in the fold. It's not competing against Chinese rivals anymore. And with its latest prototype, it might even be competing against some European manufacturers next year. Just a year after unveiling its 90-degree V4 engine at EICMA last year, CFMoto has stolen the show with its V4 1000 SR prototype. If its looks are anything to go by, this bike is going to be competing against the likes of BMW and Ducati next year, not just the Japanese Big Four. It's still a prototype, so we don't know much about it for sure. But what we do know is it's said to spit out 210 horsepower when fully loaded with its racing exhaust kit. Racing exhaust kit, dry weight, 200 kilos, even without the fancy Akrapovič exhaust, which I think is the closest looking example to a full-fledged MotoGP bike, although it is still a prototype. The bike will probably have a 1-to-1 ratio of horsepower to kg, at least that's what CFMoto is claiming. Now, if you've ever read anything I've written, you'll know I am not a fan of winglets, purely for aesthetic reasons. But these are by far the most impressive winglets I've ever seen. The guys have small actuators that allow them to move up and down simultaneously or independently. So what does that mean? What we can take from it is they'll add more downforce under braking or acceleration and possibly through the corners. This isn't really technology we're seeing anywhere else, except for on the Bimota KB998. But if CFMoto brings this out, you can be sure the likes of Ducati, BMW, etc. will have to follow as long as it works. Now, you can't possibly have technology like this without an advanced 6-axis IMU and a ride-by-wire throttle. So we have to assume when this bike comes out, it's going to be top of the crop in terms of what it offers in riding aids. And if we weren't already sure of that because of the active aero, all you have to do is look at the fact that it has semi-active electronic suspension. We can't tell much more from looking at it other than it appears to have Brembo high pure calipers and that the V4 is a stressed member of the chassis with the foot pegs bolted on to the rear cylinder backs. You can never tell if a bike is going to handle well by just looking at the frame. But I think it's fair to say this is potentially the most beautiful swing arm we've seen in 2025. Look, there's no arguing it. This bike is the star of the show here at EICMA. It's where people are going. It's where the crowd is. But at the same time, I can see it being a very polarizing model. Regardless of what you think, it is making the rest of the super bikes on show here look like they're a year, 2 years, some of them a decade behind. But I don't care. I still love the Gixxer 1000. The V4 1000 SR will play on the minds of two-wheel junkies around the world, probably for the next year, until we get to see one in action on the road, until we get to test one. But a bike that we will get to see very soon, and is certainly in production, is the 1000MT-X. Welcome to the CFMoto 1000MT-X, the flagship of CFMoto's adventure range. Although you might not know it by looking at it, because it does look like most other MTs. Now, that's not a sly dig at CFMoto. It just is. It does look like the other MTs. But I think they're pretty good looking bikes, and I don't have a problem with it. Who might have a problem with it, however, is the buyer, because they might not want their 1000 to look like a 450 or a 700 or an 800. In the world of big bore adventure bikes, a 1000cc might seem a bit strange or even dated these days, as we're used to 1200cc monsters. So where does a 1000cc sit? Go a step below the flagship 1200s and you're down to the 900cc. Well, it lives there because it's pumping out 111 horsepower and 105 Newton meters of torque. And that's more or less what you're looking at with the 900cc range. Standing on the scales, it'll show 199 kilos dry, but you can expect that to rise relatively significantly because it has a 22.5 litre tank. What's the trade-off? Well, CFMoto is claiming that this bike will give you 450 kilometers of range. That's enough to inspire a journey. Suspension is covered by KYB at the front and rear, and Brembo takes care of the stopping. There's a Bosch 6-axis IMU, 5 riding modes, and a dynamic traction control. If looks are anything to go by, this bike is meant to go where the pavement stops. Just check out its hefty skid plate, decent handle guards, and massive chain guard. But its features tell a different story. A story that most adventure bike riders will want to hear. Because of course this is still a CFMoto, and as rugged as you want to get off-road, it still comes with an 8-inch TFT touchscreen, quick shifter, heated grips, heated saddle, cruise control, adjustable handlebars, and an adjustable windscreen, all of which comes as standard. If you want to chew up miles, this sounds like the dog to do it on. On-road or off-road, this seems like it's going to be a competitive model in the niche. Unfortunately, we still don't know how much it's going to come in at. But knowing CFMoto, it's going to be less than its rivals. So we want to know what's the right price for you to take this out of a dealership. Now, if you appreciate all this wonderful information I've just given you, like and subscribe because it goes a long way for us and it helps me give you more. Until the next video, I'm Robbie Bacon and you're you.